Let's face it, nobody likes change. And when it comes to cruise ships, boy, no one really likes change. And today I've got 6 things that people that go on a cruise a lot really hate. Up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. And you know what? I love going on a cruise. I love the fact that Royal Caribbean is always innovating and new things are coming. But you know what? With all that, there's always going to be change. And, things are going to be updated, are going to vary. And inevitably, there are just some things that drive people that cruise a lot up a wall. And today I wanted to focus on some of these because not only are these things that, quite frankly, do annoy a lot of people who go on cruises a lot, but there's also some ways to maybe get around them or mitigate their effects. After all, human beings, I think in general, just don't like change. We want things to be predictable and what we envision. Certainly, when you go on a Royal Caribbean cruise, if you've been on one before, I think there are certain aspects of the cruise experience that you want to be exactly the same because after all, you loved being on board and those memories that stay with you are the ones you want to be able to recreate, especially if you're bringing friends or family on board and want to share and all that. But inevitably, change is a force of nature, and it does include the cruise industry. Royal Caribbean itself has always prided itself on moving forward with some things. But when it comes to some changes, things people that just really hate, I've got 6 things that I think cruise pros generally don't like a lot and usually complain about. Let's start off with the first thing that cruise pros hate, and that is getting a late check-in time. The first day of your cruise is the best feeling in the world because you're getting on board, your vacation is finally here, but if you have to sit on the sidelines because you got a late check-in time, it's a terrible feeling. It's like being at school while everybody else is off for a snow day, if you understand that analogy. It's just this idea that everyone else is having fun and you have to wait for your turn. No one likes to do that, certainly. And with Royal Caribbean these days, you need to have a check-in time. Pre-COVID, you could just simply show up to the cruise terminal anytime you wanted. But these days, you need to have a check-in time. You go to the Royal Caribbean app before your cruise, get a time for check-in, and that is your window for coming in to, board the ship, essentially. So how do you avoid getting a late check-in time? Well, it's really easy. Check the Royal Caribbean app for when the date will open for you to check in. The nice thing is, if you go to the Royal Caribbean app for a cruise you have booked, it will actually let you know when check-in actually opens up. There's a date on there, and what I like to do is put a calendar reminder so that way I can remember, because I'll never remember otherwise. I'm like, okay, March 14th. Sure, I'll remember that. And of course, 2 hours later, I forgot about it already. So put a calendar reminder. Let Siri know that you need a reminder about that. And then on that day, go to the Royal Caribbean app, get one of those early check-in times. Now, you could buy the key to get around the check-in time issue. So if you watch our other videos, we've talked about the key, which is a program in which you can purchase VIP access. And one of the benefits is an earlier check-in time. Now, yes, this will actually get you around that problem, especially maybe if you didn't do what I just said and you're past that point of being able to be among the first to check in for your cruise, and you can get an earlier check-in time with the key. Frankly, I just don't think it's worth it for just early check-in, but some people really care about an early check-in time. And let me be clear, even if you really lollygag it and wait until the very last minute to do online check-in, you're not going to be checking in at 4 o'clock, maybe 1:30 or something like that. But I've rarely seen check-in times go beyond, I would say, 1:30 or so. So it's not the end of the world to have a late check-in time, but if you cruise a lot, getting an early check-in time is almost a badge of honor, like, yeah, I know what I'm doing kind of thing. The next thing that cruise pros really hate is when Royal Caribbean takes a long time to announce a change. Sometimes their lack of details for a pending change, new itinerary, a ship release, etc. But regardless of what it is, waiting for something is coming can be really frustrating. And sometimes Royal Caribbean is really vague and slow to release information. Whether it's a new ship itinerary, like we're talking about maybe the new icon of the seas, or Wonder of the Seas with the entertainment, who the godmother is, and other details that we know they've probably got or have a good idea about, but we don't have those details yet. Waiting for Royal Caribbean to make an announcement that we know is coming can be really frustrating. So why is Royal Caribbean vague and slow to release information? There can be a lot of reasons, none of which will make you feel better about it, but I want to explain it to you. First of all, competitive advantage. If Royal Caribbean announces every little detail they've got about any new ship or itinerary release as soon as they have it, yeah, that might make you feel better about it, but don't forget, Royal Caribbean is in a very competitive space with other cruise lines. So announcing features on a cruise ship 2-3 years before their ship is actually going to enter service will give the competition an idea of what Royal Caribbean is doing and also give that competition an opportunity to copy them or move in a different direction to jump ahead of them, if you will. The cruise lines are extremely competitive with each other, always trying to outdo one another, so sometimes that can be the reason for it. Certainly another reason can be delays. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. A great example of this are new itinerary releases. And the idea that, this is just a simple matter of plugging in an Excel spreadsheet, printing it out, and going, that's really not the case at all. Planning cruise itineraries can be very difficult because there's only limited spots at every port, and you've got to play a game of, okay, well, if this ship can go here on this day, but this ship can't get there this day, well, now you got to rearrange the entire schedule for that entire ship sailing, and then that can cascade down to other ships and other sailings as well. It's just a mess, and trust me, I would never want that job to plan new itinerary releases because it's just got to be this ultimate never-ending game of musical chairs. But regardless, this is something else that can be a reason for that. And certainly, when it comes to ship construction and new ships, delays can happen as well. There's always ideas that come out there and they might say, hey, we're going to go in this direction. But then as they develop something, they may run into a problem or an unforeseen circumstance. All that leads to delays. And of course, there's something else about, especially when it comes to new ships and new announcements, new destinations, and that is Royal Caribbean wants people focused on something else that's coming sooner. So what I mean by that is they don't want, from a marketing perspective, to say, hey, we've got this bright, shiny object coming in 2 or 3 years from now, while there's something else new and shiny that's coming out well before that. Ultimately, they don't want one of their customers saying, ooh, something's coming out in 2 or 3 years from now. I'm going to wait to book my cruise until then because I want to go on that. Meanwhile, skipping everything else happening right now. Instead, Royal Caribbean wants you to focus on what's new and available today, book that, and then when there's time and after the new and shiny becomes a little less new and shiny, now here's a new and shiny, and then you focus on that. So a little bit of marketing here as part of the reason why sometimes things take longer to be announced. The next thing that cruise pros hate that I think is pretty much universal are price increases. And listen, no one likes a price increase, whether it is for a slice of bread or a cruise ship. It's just something that, of course, you can never really get your mind around. It's just a fact of life. But yeah, price increases do drive us up a wall a little bit. But the easy way to get around price increases, of course, is to book as early as you can. Generally speaking, if you're looking for the lowest price on a cruise, if you're saying, I want to get the best deal out there, your best bet is to book your cruise as early as you can and then reprice it often. Royal Caribbean allows customers to reprice their cruises up until final payment date, keeping in mind, by the way, some residents of certain countries like the UK or Australia can sometimes run into problems with this strategy, although in the current state of affairs, with the Enhanced Cruise with Confidence program, which comes with the Enhanced Better Price Guarantee, actually residents of those countries can now reprice cruises. So at least for the time being, we've all got a reprieve from that. Anyway, my point is you can reprice your cruise up until final payment date with no penalty. After final payment date, again, under the Enhanced Better Price Guarantee, you can still reprice, but instead of getting a price difference back, you're going to get onboard credit for the price difference. Regardless, it's the best strategy to get the lowest price for your cruise. I do this all the time. And of course, if you find a better price, how do you find a better price? Well, of course, you have to go reprice it manually. The way that I do it is I just do a mock booking on Royal Caribbean's website. But actually, the easier way to do it is let your travel agent figure it out. Well, something I love about my travel agent, which is MEI Travel, which, of course, full disclosure, is a sponsor of RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. They actually periodically reprice things on their own. And then they just send me a message, be like, hey, you saved some money on this particular sailing. And I'm like, I'm booked on this cruise? Cool, great. And I save money on it, even better. So book early, reprice often to avoid price increases. Something else that can really drive you up a wall are passengers behaving badly. And there's no excuse for this, whether it is people who are inebriated, annoying kids, saving seats at the theater. There are some activities on a cruise ship that can just simply annoy everybody else around them. Whether these people know they're being annoying or not is another question. But regardless, people who behave badly, who are not following the rules, can certainly tick off almost anybody out there. So, number one, be courteous to each other. When you're on a cruise ship, you're with other people, and you need to constantly be thinking about other folks. Certainly, it's not always about what other people are doing, but think to yourself, is what I'm doing right now annoying anybody else? Am I being courteous to my fellow passengers on board? Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're not that guy. I think this is just good life advice in general, but it certainly applies to a cruise ship. So when you're on board the ship, make sure you're in control of what you're doing. If you've got kids, I've got kids as well. Sometimes they can get a little out of hand. Make sure they're being controlled as well, or at least parented or put back in the room if they're not going to be like that. be courteous to each other. And speaking of being courteous, the next thing that cruise pros hate is being rude to the crew members. Again, something else that I just can't stand is anybody who does not treat the crew members with the respect that they're due. This may seem obvious, but being rude to crew members is not cool. The crew members work incredibly hard. And if there's a policy or rule that you don't agree with, remember that crew member is not the person who created it. Crew members aren't the ones that made the rule or the ones that are responsible for the problem that you may have. So if you run into a problem, if a crew member is telling you something that you don't like, don't lash out at them. Calmly explain problems and ask for ways to remedy the issue, not excuses. Whether that's bumping that up to a manager or just simply hashing out the issue that you got there, be sure to work with the system, not against the system. And if you run into a great crew member who really helps you out with the problem that you got, make sure you identify them in the post-cruise survey as the best way to recognize and say thank you to someone that really helps you out. Those post-cruise surveys where you put a name of the person who helped you out or was of great assistance on the cruise can really go a long way with their career. And the last thing that cruise pros really hate is, well, like I said earlier in this video, change. Bigger ships, slides, different home ports, policy changes. People just don't like change. It's a human thing. But at the end of the day, you don't have a lot of control over that. Certainly, you can let Royal Caribbean know about changes that you're not appreciative of, whether it's a new policy, a change in where a ship is ported, trends in the industry. Royal Caribbean does actually listen. There are many examples of times in which Royal Caribbean said they were going to do something and then rolled that back. A classic example is when Royal Caribbean said, we're going to redo the entire main dining room on our cruise ships with something called dynamic dining. And this was an idea that they were going to break down traditional dining and make it more a la carte and more personalized in the sense that you could go there whenever you wanted. Well, that idea really didn't resonate with guests. And after a lot of negative feedback, Royal Caribbean said, we hear you. We're going back to the old system. More recently, Royal Caribbean announced, we're going to change for our Diamond members. We're not going to give out crystal blocks anymore because people don't really care about them. They just end up leaving them in the room. Well, there were a lot of people who said, no. We like those things. I don't care what other people do. We want them. And Royal Caribbean said, you know what? You guys are right. We're going to roll that back as well. So they do listen to change. And with some of the best ways to let Royal Caribbean know you're not happy with the change is, number one, put it in a post-cruise survey. Those are really important. I talked about it earlier in this video about as it relates to crew members, but those post-cruise surveys really are taken to heart by Royal Caribbean because these are people who just went on a cruise, paid money, and are telling people that, hey, this is what I think about this particular cruise and what I'd like to see changed. That's an important metric for them. Certainly, you can give guest feedback through social media and send email. Some people will actually reach out to Royal Caribbean executives like Royal Caribbean International President and CEO Michael Bailey. Their emails are out there on the internet, and send them an email. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, I don't know, but that's another option for you as well. Certainly, listen, change is an inevitability. The idea that the cruise is going to be exactly the same today as it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago, not the case. Things are going to evolve, but it's also okay to let Royal Caribbean know if some changes aren't really in line with what you're expecting, and here's why. But at the end of the day, you should expect it, but it still drives cruise pros up a wall. There you go. There's my list of things that cruise pros hate. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think are some things that people who cruise a lot really hate about going on a cruise? Things that just kind of pet peeves that really just annoy people that cruise a lot. Let me know. I'm looking forward to hearing your ideas as well. Let me know if you like this video by hitting the like button. Also, subscribe to our channel by hitting the subscribe button and the little bell icon, so that way YouTube lets you know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.